Divorced people of Reddit, what ruined your marriage? My ex and I just came to the realization that we were completely incompatible. No big blow up, no cheating, no DV, just a long conversation, a few tears and an agreement to separate for 3 months to see what comes of it. By the end of 3 months we knew we wouldn't be getting back together, and we put the house on the market and started to make plans for a future apart but as co-parents. These days the kids are grown, but his wife and I get along very well. She was an amazing other mother to my girls, and I appreciate everything she did for them when they were at their home. I think the three of us made a great parenting team. I worked overtime, overnight shifts, and before I did that I was working 2 jobs until the main job finally became enough to support us. Wifey rarely held a job, and when she did she would call out sick very often just because she felt tired. Must be nice. Sadly her jobs offered no sick time, so when she called out, we'd lose money. We were constantly supporting her deadbeat family, always suffering fiscal pressure, amounted a shitload of debt, and so I worked harder and harder to provide. After all this hard work we had some medical issues. She started to have back problems, went to multiple doctors, etc. Eventually tried having a kid. Didn't work out despite seeing a fertility doc, and we eventually gave up. Our main joy was gaming together, spending time on various games and just hanging out with her family online or gaming in general. We'd travel to see her family often. She'd avoid doing any functions with my family because they don't like me. They didn't like her because she kept flaking on family functions and I would have to flake with her. Finally it all ended when she asked me if she could go on a trip with her friends to Maine. Told her she doesn't need to ask me permission and that I trust her implicitly. Then I discovered she hooked up with a mutual friend we had met online while gaming. Discovered because she left her smartwatch at home and his texts to her kept buzzing. I thought they were texts with her friends, and thought it would be a cute little "how did you know what we were up to" phone call later, but, yeah, heart emojis from a guy I knew. Yep. So after that, I attempted to salvage the relationship with therapy, but she had strong feelings for the other guy. Even in therapy she wouldn't stop putting this guy into the mix. When the therapist suggested that she stop talking to him, her response was, "That's not fair to him," and that's when I knew it was over. I started the painful internal process of disconnecting my emotions from her, that I had developed over the last 13 years, and now after 2 years I am finally moving on, carrying the debt from the relationship, but at least not paying alimony. I'd call the divorce a death by 1,000 cuts, as it was not any one massive thing that made her leave, but just the daily stresses of adulting that she honestly couldn't hack. Good luck, other guy, she's your problem now. About 10 years ago, I got sick and eventually had to leave work, and then I got really sick and couldn't go back. My ex-wife had to take on a caretaker role and I became a dependent. I'm much better now, but I was sick for so long that our relationship couldn't change back to a partnership. We were working on it, and then the pandemic happened. We were locked down for a few months and neither of us had our usual escapes. We decided to separate on our own terms while we were still friends. We now have a very supportive friendship, but our marriage is done. I always wondered why Mom slept in one room and Dad the other. Dad drank too much and would pass out on the couch. Mom had tons of baggage from her childhood. They both never did anything of merit to address it. They never worked as a team. There was never a joint decision. Communication was yelling. Everything was a crisis, no matter how insignificant. I still have a fucked up trauma response because of that. I go into panic mode at the drop of a hat. I'm getting better, though. Wife discloses early on she has endometriosis and may take a Percocet to help once a month. I didn't question it much. Wife and I get into similar, yet separate head-on car collisions within a month of each other. Both have thoracic and lumbar spine. I get therapy and power through recovery. She complains her docs are shit and shops around for second, third, etc. opinions while needing more and more meds for the pain. She runs out of gullible doctors after a year, yet I still don't get it because she's convincing to me, turns to some sketch ways to self-medicate, nearly overdoses on homemade poppy tea concentrate and loses her job over it, so she takes more. At this point her mom comes down with cancer but has no money or ability to care for herself save Medicare and SS. I spend considerable time caring for both of them because wife is too in pain from lack of drugs to help. Due to this, I also lose my job. Mother dies of cancer. Her half-brother follows the following month. She regresses to a near catatonic state and sleeps 18 hours a day for a few months. She suggests opening the relationship, that she just needs some release she can't get from me, i.e. disposable sex to avoid other feelings. I'm reluctant, but agree if it goes both ways and we have full disclosure. At this point desperate to improve things, and by day's end she banging a Hep C positive neighbor down the street without protection. She doesn't tell me, I find out indirectly. This persists and escalates. I can't get into other relationships like she can and we start fighting. Therapy ensues, but resentment builds anyway. Finally she says she needs space to think for a week, so I spend it at a friend's place. She barely communicates during this. I come back on day 8, and there's a strange man in my house smoking a blunt while she furiously is throwing my things onto the front lawn. It's literally my house. She won't converse, just screams obscenities and calls me a monster for killing her mother and ruining her life by making her do terrible things. Stranger dude just chills in the doorway observing.